Alrighty, welcome back, everyone. We just talked about the Bill Belichick as well as the Deion Sanders situation. Doesn't sound like either of those are going to develop into anything crazy, but the door is definitely open for both of them. So we'll watch that very closely and obviously update you if anything changes there. But let's talk about Quinn Ewers here for a second. He has a very confusing legacy that he's leaving in college football. And I first wanted to start just talking about his NFL draft prospects and how I fully believe he made the right decision to go into the draft this year instead of coming back to college football. Obviously, there was a report that came out that kind of complicated that, and that's definitely something that we can talk about a little bit later. We'll talk about it at the end of the show, but I'll weave it into this one as well because I do think it plays a big time part in the legacy that he's leaving. But we'll start with the NFL draft process. I fully believe that he made the right decision. I promise this isn't a, Quinn Ewers just trying to defend Quinn Ewers segment. It's just me, kind of the opinion that I have as we can move forward into the NFL draft process and why I think he made the right decision to jump into this class. So, the first one is he could be QB3 in this class. Now, I'm not saying this is a given, but the reality of this quarterback class is it's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, and everyone else. You cannot necessarily rank everyone the way that you want to. A lot of people love Jalen Milroe. I'm not necessarily one of those people, but at the end of the day, Quinn Ewers could absolutely be the quarterback 3 of this class. He is someone that you get him into an open air space, you get him into a combine type space to throw the football, he is going to wow you. There's just no doubt about that. He's done it a number of times throughout his career. It is absolutely something that I fully expect to happen at the combine. And throughout this year, he's dealt with an injury in 12 of the 14 games that he ended up playing. It's one of those things where you never really know what this guy is going to look like as you go throughout the NFL draft process. You never really know if maybe his base looks a little bit stronger then than it does right now because he doesn't have to deal with a little bit of an ankle injury or a little bit of an oblique injury and different things that he's dealt with throughout his career and throughout this year. He doesn't have to deal with throughout this NFL draft process, or at least won't later on. So I do fully believe that someone in the NFL is going to fully fall in love with this kid. I fully believe that they're going to be entirely different rankings for all of these quarterbacks across the 32 teams. You'll probably find 32 different top 5s, 32 different top 10s, and I think you'll look at a couple of them. They'll have Quinn Ewers at the quarterback 3. I think he at least is taken in the second round of this draft, and I think in large part it's because the quarterbacks are not all that strong in this class. He is someone that really could jump off the page, and he's still a very young kid, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But the other part of this is next year's class is just absolutely loaded, guys. It is insane how many good and NFL-ready quarterbacks there will be in next year's class. Now, Drew Aller has gotten his fair share of hate over the last little bit. He is still a very, very big-time prospect, still is a guy that a lot of people will be looking at as the number 1 overall pick next year. Then you have Garrett Nussmeier, an incredible thrower of the football. The best thing about him is his pocket presence, his pocket mobility, and his ability to get the ball out anytime he wants. Then you have Carson Beck, someone that came back, went to Miami, absolutely is someone they're going to look at because that's the way they were looking at him coming into this year as the number 1 overall pick. He could absolutely find himself back to the at least top 10, top 15 conversation. And then a guy like Cade Klubnik, absolutely going to be a conversation here, someone that absolutely can use his legs, but the arm talent is getting much better throughout his career, and he's becoming a player that I absolutely think is going to get drafted maybe in the first round, if not in the second round. So you look forward to next year. This was Quinn Ewers' opening. This is a weak quarterback class where the ability for him to get healthy and the ability for him to show him and, not fully healthy, really ripping the ball around during the combine is going to give some teams a new perspective on him, and he won't have to go up against guys that just look outright NFL ready right this second. So I do think this was the opening that he had. I think this was a weak quarterback class, and I think the ability that Quinn Ewers does have will be able to stand out much more in this class than it will in next year's class with some real, just incredible NFL prospects. And then the last one, sitting is just a must for this kid, and he is 21 years old. I know Quinn Ewers has been around for a really long time. I know he's been talked about a lot of different ways. The reality is he is still a very young kid. He's not someone that is getting drafted at 24 years old or getting drafted after 7 years of college football. He's getting drafted after 4 years of college football, and he enrolled 1 year early. So you're in a position where you're probably going to want to sit him a little bit. He is still 21, so the Rams, the Dolphins, the Seahawks are the ones that really kind of came to mind most readily. Obviously, there are some other ones, and if he jumps into that first round, some things could change relatively quickly. But the reality is, I do think he has a number of things to work on, particularly the pocket mobility and the ability to read defenses a little bit stronger. I think that will only happen if you're able to sit on the NFL sideline, and also, I think it's better for him to get on an NFL team and then be able to sit, learn the offense that he's going to be hypothetically taking over, and then possibly hit the ground running in a couple of years. So I think him being 21 is a thing that really does play into this decision. He has a little bit of time to possibly get on a team, put himself in a position where he can learn the offense, fix some of the issues that he's dealing with, and then possibly hit the ground running in his third year, maybe his third year in the NFL. So I fully agree with Quinn Ewers' decision to go into the draft. A lot of people don't. A lot of people said he should have come back and transferred for more money, and I just think it's funny when people say that he should have done that and then say there's no loyalty in college football. But at the end of the day, he is someone that you're going up against an inferior quarterback class. You just have more ability to raise your ceiling, and he is a guy that you get him in the right place and you get him healthy. I think he could really wow some of those NFL draft GMs. Then we have reasons why Quinn Ewers deserves more respect, because this is something else that I've noticed throughout this time is he declares for the draft, and a lot of people have very readily are ready to say that he made a terrible decision, that he's going to go undrafted, that he's going to go in the 5th round, and he's never going to touch the field, that he was terrible in college, and I truly just don't understand it. And one of the biggest reasons is he revitalized one of the biggest programs in the entire country. This is just the truth. The first year of Steve Sarkisian's time at Texas was a downright disaster. You had really bad quarterback play, multiple off-field issues that a lot of you know about by now, a 5-7 record. And now you're looking forward and you're wondering what is happening as we move forward, who is going to be our guy as we move forward through this, and Quinn Ewers transfers over from Ohio State, and everything changes. He got there as a redshirt freshman, led them to an 8-5 record, and then 2023, he exploded onto the scene. Won that game over in Alabama, won the Big 12, got to the CFP in 2023, followed it right back up with moving his team over to the SEC, getting them to the SEC title, and leading them right back to the CFP, right back to the semifinals, and very, very close to a national title in a lot of different ways. So Quinn Ewers, period, end of story, is one of the most important players in Texas football history, and he put himself in a great, great position throughout these last 3 years, leading Texas kind of back to where they feel like they belong, back to the top of the college football world, and back to a place where they have stability, they have hope for the future, and they have a quarterback coming in that they're a little bit maybe even more excited about. And that's something else we got to talk about here is he handled a lot of outside noise. He handled a lot of things that I think a lot of us can't even fully fathom how much he had to handle. But the reality is, in the world of a transfer portal, social media, all of the different things around these players, around these quarterbacks, it would have been very easy for Quinn Ewers to jump ship this year. He could have been a quarterback at a number of places in 2023 and absolutely could have made a lot of money doing that. He decided to stay at Texas, and he did it for a reason because he wanted to be at Texas. Now, he started his career at Ohio State, obviously did transfer over, but if you know anything about that recruitment, you know if Steve Sarkisian was there 1 year earlier, Quinn Ewers is probably there 1 year earlier. That was kind of the reality of that. So you're in a position now where Arch Manning's sitting right behind you, and every time he runs on the field, whether it's for a play or to start a game, the crowd goes absolutely crazy. Not nearly as crazy as they go when Quinn Ewers runs on the field, and that's got to be frustrating. He could throw for 5 touchdowns and then throw 1 pick, and he was never going to be quite good enough. It was going to be, the conversation was always going to be, well, Arch Manning would have made that throw. Well, Arch Manning would have won that game. Well, Arch Manning would have had more ability to get out of that sack, and the only one of those that is true is the last one. He does have more of ability to get out of sacks, but the reality is Quinn Ewers has handled a lot of different stuff throughout his career, and the biggest one is the Arch Manning cloud that has been over him. Now, he and Arch get along incredibly well. Their relationship seems to be really, really great, but everyone outside of it really put a lot on him, put a lot of stress on him, and definitely made him feel like he wasn't even the most popular guy on the team because he just plainly wasn't. But he continued to deliver, he continued to win his team games, and he continued to put him in positions to possibly get to the CFP and maybe even win a national title. Came a little bit short of that goal, but overall, handling the outside noise of what Arch Manning is had to have been just incredibly, incredibly tough, and he handled it about as well as you could possibly ask someone to handle it. And then finally, the recruitment of Quinn Ewers put some unrealistic expectations on him. And this is not me trying to make you guys feel bad for Quinn Ewers for being able to play college football and get paid $1.4 million to go to Ohio State. I promise you that is not what I'm doing. But what I will say is, when he went to Ohio State, that was the conversation. It was, oh my God, he's getting paid $1 million to go play college football. Now we look back 3 years later, 4 years later, and we're looking at Darian Mensah getting paid $3.5 to go to Duke, and Carson Beck getting paid $4 million to go down to Miami. So it's really not all that crazy as we look back on it now, but it was definitely something that created a lot of expectations for this kid and made it so if he didn't win a national championship, if he didn't win a Heisman, if he didn't do just ridiculous things at the college football level, he was going to get torn apart. Now, this is not to say he doesn't have real issues. He absolutely does, and they are issues that couldn't hurt his NFL career. No doubt about that. You know, the pocket mobility is a problem. The pocket presence is a problem. The, arm slot that gets some balls knocked down is an issue. There are issues with Quinn Ewers, so I'm not trying to fully defend him or anything like that, but the reality is he was put in a position where he was the poster child for NIL. He was the guy that broke the dam. That is NIL now, and he's the guy that took over a program that, let's just be totally honest, not a lot of people like. So there was all the pressure in the world on him, all the hype in the world on him, and all he did was kind of just execute. He did his job, he handled all the crazy noise, and he was really, really good, guys. He was obviously not perfect and definitely missed the mark, and there's a good argument to be made that in a couple of different moments throughout this year, he kept Texas from being quite the team that they could have been offensively. But the reality is, the career that he has been downright remarkable, and he represents a lot of the great things about college football that a lot of people bemoan are gone now. You know, the idea of he could have transferred after this year and said, I'm going to go make a lot of money somewhere, and we'll talk about that $8 million a little bit later. I don't think that's the number, but I do think he foregoed money to go to the NFL draft because being a Texas Longhorn meant that meant something to him. It meant something to say, I'm leaving as a Texas Longhorn. He leaves 21-5 as a starter in the last 2 years, 2 CFP appearances, third in career passing yards for Texas history, third in passing touchdowns. The dude was remarkable. There's no doubt about that. And he represented a lot of the great things that we love about college football, but he just wasn't quite the player that everyone expected him to be. He wasn't quite the number one overall pick, the Heisman winner, the championship winner that everyone loved him to be. I understand it. I get there's a lot of pressure on him, and I get there's a lot of people that are going to say a lot of things, but to me, Quinn Ewers is obviously someone that defines what Texas football is going forward, and whatever you think about his NFL draft stock, we got to appreciate guys in college football for what they did in college football, not because of what they're going to do in the NFL. So what he did in college football was just revive one of the biggest programs in the sport and put him in a place where they can go forward and win multiple national championships. So I understand the arguments against Quinn Ewers. I understand people thinking he's not going to be a great NFL quarterback. I don't get people thinking he wasn't a great college quarterback. He was absolutely fantastic and missed the ultimate goal, but he was really, really incredible and deserves a little bit more respect than he's getting. But we'll obviously talk about that more. Definitely something that will impact throughout the NFL draft process. But let's take our second break here, and when we come back, we'll talk about his head coach and also the head coach up there in State College. Steve Sarkisian and James Franklin are staring down very different but very real challenges in 2025, and they're going to be hugely defining years for them as they go forward, and we'll talk about it right after this, so stick with us.